Well, the truth is, not everyone has the time to watch the market and read the news every day. Your bosses are calling, your kids are shouting, and sometimes even your wife is nagging. You know, time compounds and staying in the market is important, but you probably have better priorities. So maybe that's where a digital wealth management app can do the trick for you. Well, let's explore that more in the studio. You see, in Malaysia, we have plenty of these platforms to choose from, but it's always been something that I'm not that keen to look at because, you know, if you can pay way less fees and have much more control with a stockbroker, why even bother? But when the people from Versa approached me asking for a neutral and unbiased review of their platform, and they said I'm free to say anything I want, I thought, why not? Surely there must be a product for everyone, right? So here we go. Some of you may have heard of them before already, but just in case you're totally new to Versa, it's basically a digital wealth management platform launched in 2021, and they are licensed by the Securities Commission of Malaysia. To make it better, their partnership with Aham Asset Management Berhad allows them to digitize and bring forth all the money market and also investment funds to make it more accessible to Malaysians. Who is Aham? Well, they were formerly known as Affin Hwang Asset Management Berhad, so you know your money is safely managed by a licensed financial institution. And they have three main products on their platform. Versa Safe, which is basically the money market funds with one of the highest rates in Malaysia, and I'm sure most of you heard of them already. And Versa Invest, which is basically their investment funds that we're gonna be talking about today. And lastly, Retirement, which is basically their private retirement scheme PRS product, but I'll leave that for another day. Anyways, jumping back onto their platform, there are 8 funds in total that you will find in Versa Invest, and I've grouped them into these 4 main categories according to the nature of the investment tools: stocks, fixed income, gold, and also diversification in Singapore. More on that in just a bit. Right before we dive in further, if Shariah compliance is a concern for you, these are the funds you should look at. And it's also important for you to know that different products come with different risk levels. Yes, some may have better returns, but that is often associated with higher risk as well. Again, higher risk, higher reward. The saying doesn't lie. And in case you are totally new to the investing world, you'll probably find it hard to understand some of the terms mentioned here. Fixed income, or most of the time what we refer to as bonds, are like loans you give to a company or government, and in return they promise to pay you back the full amount on a specific date, and all along the way they make regular interest payments to you like a dividend. And due to the nature of bonds in general, they are usually considered safer than stocks because debt owners like you and I in this case are always prioritized over shareholders if something bad happens to them. But buying stocks, on the other hand, is like buying into a business, and this is where you would be taking a part of the risk. If the business is doing good, you as the shareholder can get your piece of pie. But it also works vice versa. And in order to balance the huge volatility of stock price but also capturing their growth at the same time, one common strategy that financial advisors always preach is to diversify our investments into stocks, bonds, and commodities, and then adjust their weightage according to your risk appetite and investment goals. So feel free to check out this video if you want to learn more about portfolio allocation. Now let's start with equities. Some call it stocks, some call it shares. It's basically companies and businesses lah. They have 3 funds over here: Versa Growth, Versa Growth I, and also Versa Global I as their high-risk equities product, and all of them have about 70 to 80% weightage of stock in their portfolio. So first of all, Versa Growth is a fund of funds where you own many stocks at once, and they are mainly US market focused. So if most of your assets are denominated in Malaysian ringgit, your house, EPF retirement account, fixed deposits, savings account, etc., then it's always a good option to have exposure towards the global reserve currency, the US dollar. For example, the largest holding of this fund is S&P 500, which include top US companies like Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, etc. And like I said earlier, if Sharia compliance is your concern, the similar alternative will be Versa Global I. This fund is largely similar, but they handpick the Sharia-compliant companies to be included in this portfolio. And speaking of the result, these two funds have had impressive performance, with both having more than 20% of 1-year return. But of course, do take it with a pinch of salt, since past performance does not indicate future performance. And just in case you're wondering, over the same period of time, if you invest directly with S&P 500 yourself instead, you will get about 24% of return instead. Of course, I know it's kind of unfair for such comparison since there's more steps involved for DIY investing, but just in case you ask. And let's not forget Versa Growth I. While this Sharia-compliant fund is also largely made up of stocks and supported by fixed income, the fund mostly holds Malaysian companies instead, about 93% of the entire weightage. That's heavy. And to give you more context, some of their top holding companies are Axis REIT, Dialog Group Berhad, Tenaga Nasional TNB, Hartalega, Axiata, etc. So if you're keen to invest in Malaysian companies instead, this is where you should look at. And performance-wise, their 1-year return is about 13%, which somewhat matches the KLCI index that represents the largest 30 companies listed on the main board in Malaysia. But if the high volatility of stocks keeps you awake at night, you can also opt for this moderate risk category that has a higher weightage of bonds. Versa Moderate invests mostly in fixed income, about 73% to be exact, and they are mostly spread across bond and income funds inside and outside of Malaysia. It comes in at around 7% of return for the last 12 months, which is actually still pretty reasonable and strong after you minus off the fees involved, which I'll cover more in just a bit. Still a respectable net return of say 5% considering it's a moderate risk investment. Again, it has a Sharia compliant version as well, Versa Moderate I, which is heavily invested into Malaysian sukuks and equities. And before you ask, sukuks are basically Islamic bonds, and Malaysia has the largest sukuk market in the world, ahead of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey, and many other countries that roll out similar products. Anyways, the return of this fund is much subpar though, coming in about 4.6% for the last 12 months, negative 7.2% per annum for the last 3 years, and only 1.1% per annum for the last 5 years. When in doubt, buy gold. That's what most of the elderly people say, right? But gone are the days that auntie uncle buys physical gold. It's simply safer and easier now that you can buy digital gold via some gold brokerage platform, or just, invest into a fund that tracks the gold price like Versa Gold over here. Either way, you get the job done. But for the purpose of saving your money from paying too much middleman fees, it's much better to invest in gold digitally as opposed to buying the physical ones. But regardless, many would know that gold has been performing really well lately, no thanks to the raging price inflation caused by the pandemic money printing. And indeed, it is reflected in their 1-year and also their 3-year annualized return, which averages more than 10% return per annum as of the recording of this video. Of course, how can I not say this? It does come with a management and trustee fee of about 0.33% per annum, which is very low if you ask me, since there's no brokerage or middleman fees involved. Highly recommended to do it over here if gold is what you need in your portfolio. So, we always hear that Singapore is 3.5 times better than us, and indeed, Singapore dollar is considered a safe haven currency due to its low inflation and a stable exchange rate. So, instead of watching your Malaysian ringgit slowly depreciate against the Sing dollar, you can always buy or invest in Sing dollar denominated assets to protect yourself from the currency risk. And this is where the Versa Sing Dollar Fund comes in. They offer a rather conservative portfolio that is mainly built up by fixed income like Singapore government bonds, as well as blue chip Singaporean companies like DBS, OCBC, UOB Bank, etc. It comes in at a return of 8.6% per annum for the past 12 months, 3.9% per annum for the last 3 years, and 5.2% for the last 5 years. That's a very solid net return considering it's a rather stable investment. Singapore, right? And under the same category, there is Versa REITs Fund as well, which provides you the ability to invest in Singapore and Asian Pacific REITs, or short for Real Estate Investment Trust. But to be frank, I'm not gonna waste your time with it since it has a rather subpar historical performance, which is made worse considering the fee you are paying for it. So we'll skip for that. And speaking of fees, this gives me the perfect segue to cover the fees under these funds, because I would not do you justice if I didn't highlight these to you. The good thing here is Versa confirmed with me that they are only charging you management and trustee fee, which averages about 1.5 to 1.8% per annum for most of the invest funds here, except for Versa Gold Fund, which charges 0.33% per annum that I've highlighted to you earlier. And other than that, no sales charge, no sales fee, no redemption fee, etc, etc. All of those fees are completely waived off by Versa. And to make it even better, the minimum investment amount is only 100 ringgit, which is as low as it can get already. And the flexibility of funding via online FBX that comes with it is really something that I can say many would appreciate if they are not keen to perform DIY investing via stockbrokers. And if you guys are already saving your money on their Versa Safe account that gives almost 4% per annum, well, it only gets better, because only for a limited time, Versa is running a money booster campaign that lets you earn an additional 1% per annum of interest for your Versa Safe account, as long as you set up an auto debit of at least 200 ringgit into their invest funds, except for Versa Gold. And that's a convenient and rewarding way to start dollar cost averaging into the market while keeping your investment risk under control. And to make it even better, it stacks on your existing interest rate, and that makes it come close to 5% per annum of interest. It's literally free money for you guys. But of course, do note that you do have to have a minimum of 1,000 ringgit in either your Versa Cash or Cash Out accounts to be eligible for this campaign, just in case you missed it. So what are you waiting for? Feel free to use my referral link down below to sign up and boost your savings rate. So if you appreciate my 2 cents worth of opinion, here's what I honestly think about Versa Invest. Number 1, their average fees of 0.3 to 1.8% per annum is easily lower than most of the conventional unit trusts and mutual funds out there that can charge you upwards of 3 to 5%. Yes, but it's also much pricier as opposed to investing via stockbrokers yourself. But let's not forget, if your investment amount is relatively small, like let's say less than 1,000 ringgit per trade, then a $2 brokerage fee still easily comes close to 1% already. So you are technically paying like 0.5 to 0.8% per annum more for the convenience of fund management via Versa Invest. So that's why this could still be a good deal for some people actually. Number 2, this is a hybrid between a unit trust and also a digital broker. So there is no need for those pesky middlemen or trust agents that shove and hard sell you their funds just to close their sales. No more of that. You can take your time and slowly read and understand their offerings, and then decide whenever you're ready, because everything can be done online via their platform. So to me, that's a huge step up as compared to the conventional unit trust and mutual funds. But number 3, let's admit it, not all funds here are worthy of your money and your time. Some of them have minimal track record, low single-digit returns, and some even have negative returns for the past couple of years, even when you factor in the dividends that come with it. And from what I can see here, if I were to start with a quote-unquote safer pick, or should I say something more stable and predictable, I think the Versa Sing Dollar is a great fund that comes with a solid net return even after fees. Now, this is great value for those of you looking for something that is just a tad bit riskier compared to the money market funds. And as I've mentioned earlier, at just 0.33% of fees, the Versa Gold Fund is also a fantastic value proposition if you want to invest in gold. And another one that I really fancy here is the Versa Global I Fund. They have a much higher exposure to US stocks, which contributes to most of their return, and that's also something that I'm naturally drawn towards because I can afford the risk and volatility for the higher capital growth in return. But of course, I'm also mindful of the fact that they still have a minimal track record, and that applies for all the other funds out there, not just on this app. But all in all, at just a minimum investment of 100 ringgit, coupled with the convenience of managed investments, I do see quite huge group of people that can benefit from Versa Invest. It might not be the same crowd that prefers DIY investing and having the ability to customize their portfolio for the best return to value ratio, but let's admit it, not everyone has the time to research and follow up with their investments, and this app could just be the tipping point for people to start their investing journey.